Where there is love, there is life. Memoirs of a Summer is a story of two young individuals who meet for the first time and fall in love. Let's hear from them how their stories unfolded in their journey of life. From my world of dreams, I was awakened by the familiar ring of my handphone. It's 4 a.m. in the morning. With groggy eyes, as I pick up the call, I hear a lot of commotion on the other side. It's the emergency department of the Nanavati hospital, and the medic on the line blurts out, "Sir, it's a young man with a cardiac arrest. CPR is on. We are trying our best to revive him." Instantly, the grogginess fades away to oblivion. All my senses, which were in a midnight slumber, now wakes up. I say to my colleague, "Get the heart moving. Shift him straight to the cardiac operation theater. I'm on my way." The night is dark with starry skies. I get up. 16th April 1989. Labonno met Ankit for the first time at a wedding. Labonno Acharya was in her last year of her teens and finishing her graduation in history from Presidency College. A bright, lively personality, Labonno lived up to her name, both in looks and talent. In her final year of her college, she had made quite a name for herself for her social viewpoints and creative writing. College journals, prominent dailies would publish her articles. Assertive, yet gentle in her approach, Labonno had a penchant for poetry and would recite her own writings in several forums. Academically, she was extremely bright, and her professors felt she would go a long way in the years ahead. Labonno's father, Professor Deepak Acharya, had just retired from Calcutta University as professor of economics and now pursuing his passion for writing. Her mother, Shormila Acharya, excelled in painting and from a very young age delved in the world of colors and canvases. Labonno, being the only child, grew up in an environment where she was the center of attention. Her father gave her all the independence, and mother supervised her growing up. Labonno's freedom of thought and forthright manner was an outcome of her parents' liberated thought process, which was an important part of her formative years. Ankit Chatterjee was in his mid-20s and had just finished his professional course in medicine from JJ Medical College, Mumbai. An average student throughout his school and college, but made it up with his perseverance and determination. He was passionate about cricket and spent many hours in Shivaji Park honing his skills. Ankit came from a middle-class background. His father, Anurag Chatterjee, worked in a cotton mill in Mumbai, and retired as a general manager of operations a year earlier. Ankit's mother, Shupriti, was fond of classical dancing and had a school. Ankit's parents had moved from a suburb of Kolkata in 1973 and settled in the housing complex at Goregaon. I had come to Kolkata to attend the wedding of my friend Surojit, who was getting married to Shukonna, Labannu's cousin. As I stepped out of Bombay Mail in the early hours, the cool breeze from across the Hooghly River felt really good. The sky was crimson red as the sun was announcing its arrival in this part of the world. I got into a taxi, and as I headed towards Toliganj, memories of my childhood in Kolkata came flooding in. It was 1 in the afternoon as myself and Surojit were moving in the highways of Bengal towards the suburban town of Behrampur, Murshidabad, which was Shukanna's ancestral home. The wedding ceremony was late at night, and we two friends delved into many a conversation involving our school days. We stopped for a tea break with the other friends and relatives traveling with us. As we neared our destination, I felt I was rewinding the time clock into the glorious history of Murshidabad during the 18th century. But little did I know that my life, my destiny, would be transiting towards a new orbit in the next couple of days. We were warmly welcomed by Shukanna's parents and her relatives. The atmosphere was electrifying. I was touched by the warmth and affection shown by the bride's parents, friends, and relations towards a group of relatively unknown people. I felt the power of Bengali culture and tradition, who could embrace the unknown with so much love. I was sitting in a distance watching the proceedings. This is when I heard the gentle voice. Coffee? I looked up and our eyes met for the first time. I was looking into the eyes of a young, beautiful lady. There was serenity and grace in her poise which touched me. As she extended her hand with the cup, I said, "Sure," and stood up. "I'm Ankit, Surojit's friend," I said, and pulled a chair and said, "Please sit," and took the cup of coffee from her. "Can I get you a cup too?" She answered, "I'm Labannu, Shukanna's cousin. I got to go now. We will have it some other time," and took leave. I gazed at the trail as she was walking back, and then suddenly she looked back, and for a fleeting moment, our eyes met again as she went inside. As I sipped the coffee, my mind was rewinding the entire episode multiple times. Out of nowhere, Labanna had come. I realized she had one cup in her hand. I somehow felt that the cup was meant for me. It was a brief encounter which would shape the canvas of our lives forever. At 10 p.m., Surojit wed Shukanna. I had not witnessed a Bengali wedding ceremony before. I had come to attend the ceremony to soak in the atmosphere, the culture, the rituals, and the fun associated with it. The warmth and hospitality of the hosts touched my heart to a great extent. At one point in the evening, I was introduced to Labanno's father. He shook my hands and asked, "What do you do, young man?" "I have graduated in medicine," I replied. "Good to hear that. This country needs young doctors like you." I felt inspired that there are people who view our profession not for personal needs but for the need of the nation. I wondered that this kind of encouragement would surely come from a thoughtful man in a teaching profession. The fun and frolics continued late in the night. The groom was awake all night, surrounded by Shukonna's brothers and sisters from 10 to 30 years old, chatting with plenty of enthusiasm. I saw Labanno a few times, but did not make any eye contact. I had probably dozed off. I woke up with a startle. It was 5 a.m. and the groom was surrounded by his sister-in-laws of different age groups. This was some ritual which I would come to know later. Labanno was not among them. I moved out of the room and walked upstairs to a large open terrace. The morning sun was coming out of the horizon. I could see a silhouette at the far end. I slowly walked up, and then she turned around at my approaching footsteps. There was Labanno, standing with the rays of the rising sun falling on her face. I stood in a trance. Never had I seen anybody so beautiful in my life. Before I could say anything, she said softly, "Did you get any sleep?" I mumbled a yes or a no, which did not make any sense to me. Labanno was looking at me as I asked her what was she studying in Calcutta. "History," she answered. "I'm into the final year of graduation." I told, "I have just completed my graduation in medicine last week and would be starting my internship." "I know," she said. Surprised, I asked, "But how do you know? Do you like sunrise or sunset?" she asked. "Sunrise by the beach is my favorite." "Labanno, I like to tell you that I like history as well. It used to be my favorite subject in school," I said. I heard myself vocalizing her name for the first time. "Why did you do medicine then?" she asked. Our conversation was interrupted by footsteps coming up. "I have to go now. We'll see you later," she said as she walked away from me. As she approached the staircase, I called out, "Labanno, when?" She turned her face and smiled. My heart missed a few beats and was racing. I leaned on the railing and looked out into the vast open space. My mind was asking millions of questions. Nothing like this had ever happened to me before. All I could think was Labanno's stretched hand giving the coffee cup, the serene look on her face bathed by the morning sun, and then her question, "Did you get any sleep?" I like to think There was concern in her voice, which comes from a caring soul. Ankit, I think you are in love. In the evening, we proceeded to Kolkata with the newlyweds. I did not get a chance to say goodbye to Labunna, though I saw fleeting glimpses of her in the farewell group. Labunna was not one in a many. She seemed like one in a million. I did feel many a times to ask Shukanna about her beautiful cousin, but thought, if destiny has brought us together once, it will do so again. It did. On the evening of the reception party, I was gazing at the flower arrangement on the gate, which read, Surajit weds Shukanna. I heard a gentle voice. It looks nice. I was startled because I heard this voice before, and in my innermost mind was waiting for this voice. I turned around and said, Labunna. She said, you didn't say goodbye while coming back. There was something in her voice where I felt I had hurt her sentiment. How could I tell her that, Labunna, I desperately wanted to, but could not. Finally, I was too embarrassed to answer. We stood looking at each other for a while. I broke the silence. Labunna, can I see you tomorrow? I'll be at home tomorrow evening after my college, she said. I took her address and asked, would 6 p.m. be okay? She smiled and said, yes. The rest of the evening, I saw Labunna with her cousins and friends enjoying themselves in the ambience of the party. The next 18 hours were the longest in my life. I was nervous and feeling good as well. I was wondering as to how and what Labunna would have talked to her parents about my coming to her place. I had felt good and reassured that Labunna did accept my proposal to meet her and that she decided on the when. These two decisions, I felt, reflected her independence and self-belief. The calling bell rang 5 minutes before 6 p.m. at 15 Baliganj Place. Labunna opened the door and smiled. An elderly lady was by her side. You are 5 minutes early, she said. Did not want to be late for the most important appointment of my life, I responded with a smile as I handed over a bouquet of red roses to her. Thanks, they are lovely, she said. I opened my shoes and walked into the drawing room, which had a view of the Birla temple across the large Venetian window. Please have a seat, I'll be back in a minute. As I took my seat, my eyes shifted to the wall book cabinet filled to the brim. Ma, I could hear Labunna's melodious voice. This was different from what I had heard at the wedding. This was spontaneous and had a tinge of excitement as well. The elderly lady who Labunna called Mashi served me with a glass of water. Labunna entered the room with her mother and introduced her. Mashima, I'm Ankit, I said as I touched her feet. Baba Bosho. Please sit, she said. The first word Baba referred to motherly love, affection and care, all rolled into one. She sat opposite me while Labanno sat at an angle where she could see me directly, but for me to see her, I would have to turn my head. I was amused. Labanno told me you live in Mumbai. We transit Mumbai at least once a year on our way to Europe. What do your parents do? She asked. Before I could answer, Professor Acharya entered the room. I stood up and approached him. He took my hands and shook warmly and asked me to take my seat while he sat beside Labanno's mother. Labanno was telling me you recite very well. I was dumbfounded as I was wondering where this had come from. Then it struck me that on the night of the wedding, while we were sitting with Shukanna and Shorajit, I had recited a few lines from Sesher Kabita, the parting verse. কালের যাত্রার ধ্বনি শুনিতে কি পাও, তারি রথ নিত্য উধাও, জাগিছে অন্তরিক্ষে হৃদয় স্পন্দন, চক্রে পিষ্ট আধারের বক্ষ ফাটা তারার ক্রন্দন। ওগো বন্ধু, do you hear the rattles of the time's flight? Its cart perpetually goes out of sight. Resonating heart throbs in the skies. Out of wheel-crushed darkness, stars' bitter cries. My friend. I turned my head and looked at her. She had a smile on her face which said a lot about how our lives could unfold with lots of spicy encounters if and when we were to spend our lives together. So, Ankit, what are your future plans? Said Professor Acharya. I said, I've just finished my graduation last week and it would take a year to complete my internship. I would like to choose cardiology as my career. For that, I need to do at least 2 years of training in India before going to UK for postgraduate training. Finally, I would wish to come back to India and settle down here. Labanno's father nodded and said, I like your clarity of thoughts. Tell me something. What are your ideas about empowerment of women in our society? I was taken aback a little as to where this question was leading to. I answered, Sir, I strongly feel that women need to have ambition and need to dream big. They need to create an identity of their own. And for that, education is the tool for their empowerment. Yes, I agree, he said. Labanno's mother called us to the dining table. Labanna and me sat side by side while her parents sat opposite to us. There was luchi, aloo dum, along with sandesh and payas. I was having this kind of delicious homemade Bengali snacks after a long time. This was followed by seasonal langra aam. Later, while we had tea, we chatted on different topics. It was 7:30 p.m. As I approached to leave, I gathered courage and asked Labanno's father, Sir, can I take Labanno out for lunch tomorrow? He broke into a smile and said, Why don't you ask her? She is empowered to take decisions about herself. As I bent down to tie my shoelaces, I looked up. Our eyes met. Labanno, I said softly, Can I take you out for lunch tomorrow? Yes, she said. I'd be happy to come. I took leave. Next day, as we were traveling along Paliganj Circular Road in the afternoon, I asked her, Peter Cat? Yes, that would be nice, she said. Our taxi left us in front of Peter Cat. As we entered, we saw a pretty large Sunday crowd waiting. I went up to the receptionist and said, There is a booking for Ankit and Labunno for 1:30. I looked at Labunno. She had a quizzical expression on her face. As we took a seat on the first floor of the restaurant, I said, Labunno, I took the help of Shukonna to make the choice of the restaurant to your liking. Chelo kebab is very good here, she said. We ordered that with roti and chicken makhani. As we waited, she said, I liked when you said that history was one of your favorite subjects at school. I said, I read a Bengali book titled Ami Subhash. Can't remember the author though. It was a superb historical narration of how Netaji slipped under the British nose on a wintry night from his Elgin Road residence. He was under house arrest then. The narration was done to Mollika, isn't it? She said. You are absolutely right. That was one of my favorite books. I like to read historical novels too. Another of my favorite was a novel on Napoleon's first love, Desiree. Looks like you liked more of the romanticism than history itself. Labunno was all smiles. As we enjoyed the delicacies of Peter Cat, I felt we had an enjoyable rapport in whatever little interaction we had. Labunno was knowledgeable and also had a good sense of humor. It was close to 4 in the afternoon when we moved out. Shall we go for a walk by the riverside? I asked in expectation. Yes, she said. As the taxi approached the Prinsep Ghat, the large expanse of the Hooghly River loomed in front of us. We got down and started walking. Not much was said, but our eyes were meeting from time to time, and little smiles were exchanged. After a while, we sat on a cemented seat. I looked at Labunno, and I felt her expectant eyes were waiting for me to say something. My heart was pounding at 1,000,000 beats per minute, and it seemed that she could also hear them. Labunno was cool and composed. Labunno, I blurted out, I am proposing to you. Can we be together for the rest of our life? Her beautiful face changed colors. It was crimson, more like the setting sun in the river in front of us. Whether it was anger or intense embarrassment, I would never know. All I know that she was looking like goddess incarnate. What? She said, her voice hardly audible. She was quiet for some time before she said, Let's go now. An hour later, with very few words exchanged, I was dropping her off at her place. I told her, I'll be leaving tomorrow at 4 p.m. for Bombay. She said, I know. By then, little did I know, she had a hint of smile on her face as she walked inside. On my way back to Surajit's place, I was feeling good that I could express my feelings to Labunno with a sense of finality. I understood that we did not even have a chance to know each other well enough before I said what I said. But who has ever known each other well enough before proposing? Does that really matter? What mattered most was probably the instant chemistry and liking for each other. What mattered was the caring person I saw in her. What mattered was a sense of humor and grace and poise about her. That's all that matters. Next day after lunch, I proceeded towards the station at Howrah. Surajit wanted to see me off, but I deserted him and told him in jest, "Be with your bride." It was 3 when I reached. The train entered the platform at around 3:15. As I was about to board my compartment, I heard a familiar soft voice, "Ankit." This was probably the biggest surprise of my life. There was Labunno standing with a big carry bag in her hand. This was the first time she called me by my name. I walked towards her and she extended her hand with the carry bag. "This is for you. Ma has sent it," she said. "Thanks, Labunno, for coming over. Please convey my thanks to Mashima." She looked into my eyes and said, "Ankit, there is something else I have to tell you. I didn't expect this." My heart missed a few beats as I waited in anticipation. It seemed like ages before Labonno finally spoke. "When are you coming back?" she asked. I was wondering whether we have ever discussed about my possibility of ever coming back to Calcutta, but I could not recollect any such conversation. I held her hand and looked into her eyes. They were moist, and her face had a tinge of sadness. I had a lump in my throat as I said, "Very soon, Labunno, very soon. I will come back for you." She still had her hand in mine while she said, "I'll wait for you. Take care till then." "You too," I said as I walked her up to her car. Suddenly she asked, "Do you write letters?" The door of the car was open and she was just about to get in. "Not much, but I can always try," I said. She handed me a sealed envelope with my name and her address on it. "This is from me for your journey," she said as she entered her car. As the car moved away, I had a feeling of fulfillment and emptiness. The train chugged along. I opened the envelope. "Dear Ankit, are you surprised to receive my letter? I am sure you are. As I pen my thoughts on this piece of paper, I am surprised too. Life is all about surprises, isn't it? Not uncertainties, as some say. You must be thinking of me as a person who never gave a straight answer to your straight questions. But you must believe that it has never been my intention to do so. You have been very patient with me and smilingly indulge my immediate non-responses. Shukanna's wedding may be the turning point of our lives. I will treasure the moments we spend together. We'll be waiting for your letter. Until then, take care. Lavunna. P.S. One of the items in the food bag is made by me. Write in which one it is. Little did I know. The 25-year-old young boy was surrounded by so many in the cardiac cath lab as he drifted in and out of life-threatening rhythms of his heart, brought to temporary normalcy with electrical shocks and innumerable medicines. I was scrubbing in while the anesthetist was adjusting the parameters of ventilation. Sir, the blood pressure is quite low despite the medications, and we are awaiting the COVID reports. Damn it, you have a young kid cardiogenic shock. Everything has to wait, I kind of said in an impatient tone. Right now, we will need to put him on intra-aortic balloon pump, IABP, to support his circulation and perform primary angioplasty. Take the appropriate COVID precautions and get on with it. Nishit, have you spoken to his relatives and taken the required consent? I asked my associate. Yes, I have. Shreyan was traveling to Kolkata from London via Dubai with his family. In the early hours of the morning, he experienced chest pain mid-air and the craft made an emergency landing in Mumbai. Our hospital was alerted from the cockpit and the first aid was administered immediately. Our ambulance and the team received Shreyan from the aircraft. ECG done in the ambulance showed ST elevation in the anterior leads, confirming a massive heart attack. We did have to deliver electric shocks to his heart a few times in the ambulance itself to treat the life-threatening heart rhythms he was having from time to time. Sir, the blood pressure is better with the IABP. Good. It's a case of acute heart attack with the total closure of the main artery, LAD, from the origin, I said after the first shoot in the angiogram. Let's open up the artery quickly. 40 minutes later, we had removed a huge clot from the main artery, LAD coronary artery, supplying the majority of the heart muscle and restoring a good blood flow. His rhythm and blood pressure had stabilized for the first time since we got him. Excellent teamwork, I must say, I said as I moved out of the operating room. Mary, please bring the family members to my consulting room. Let me first talk to them, then shift the patient to the CCU. I badly wanted a cup of coffee, then thought, that can wait. I put the water on the boil and loaded the computer with Shreyan's angioplasty CD to explain to the family. The parents of Shreyan walked in, accompanied by Mary. The COVID period had made this doctor-patient family interactions so impersonal with masks and gowns. Please come in and have a seat, I said. I am Dr. Ankit Chatterjee, I introduced myself. Myself, Dr. Anirban Rai, and my wife, Dr. Lavunna Rai. Shreyan has had a big heart attack. We have successfully done the angioplasty and he is stable now. He will be on the support of medications and machines for the next 24 hours and hopefully should be out of CCU in the next 48 hours. Is he out of danger, doctor? Asked Dr. Roy. Yes, he is. The angioplasty procedure went well. My dad is in ICU with COVID in Kolkata. We were on our way to see him, said Dr. Roy. Shreyan would be in the hospital for at least 5 days before he is discharged. All going well, I said. Please see him before he is shifted to CCU. He is sedated right now and will be able to communicate with you once he is off ventilation tomorrow. There was visible relief on their masked faces, which I could see in their eyes as I played the angioplasty film and explained the procedure. Is it possible that the heart attack is related to the COVID which Shreyan had 3 months ago in May 2021? Asked Dr. Roy. Yes, that is a possibility, since we are seeing quite a few young patients with no pre-existing heart problems presenting with heart attacks, I said. I pray that your dad recovers soon, I told Dr. Roy as they left the room. I sipped the freshly made coffee, somewhat dazed by the events which unfolded in the last hour. 1st January 2022. I had just finished seeing my last patient in my hospital OPD after the muted New Year celebrations in the midst of the third wave of COVID. The last couple of years had recalibrated the world in every sense of the word. I stood in the balcony of the hospital watching the sun set in the Arabian Sea. Sir, there is a parcel for you, Manoj, my secretary, told me. I have kept it beside your bag. I was done for the day and after a short Zoom meet, drove back home. After an early dinner, I sat in the balcony with the cool night breeze from the sea on my face and Diwana Hua Badal playing on the music system. Suddenly I remembered about the parcel which had come that evening, which I had put in my bag. I took it out, oblivious from where it had come from, and opened it. There was a letter with a small plastic bag. I sat on my desk and the letter dated 1st of December 2021 read, Dear Ankit, it's been more than 3 decades since a 24-year-old medic saw off a 21-year-old college girl at Howrah station with dreams in their hearts. Do you write letters? The girl had asked. Not much, but I can always try, the medic had replied. We'll be waiting for your letter, the girl had written in the note which she handed over to him at the station. Since then, every day as life passed by, my life had stood still. Many questions engulfed me in those months in the year of 89. As I wrote to you every month and never understood why you never replied even once. Gradually, with passing time, only one question remained of my first love. Why? Why, Ankit? Why? I had the option to find out from Shukonna about the why. But I resisted that temptation and waited and waited and waited and waited for that promised letter. I heard you were in UK for your postgraduate training, and fate also took me to the same country a few years later. Every time I talked to Ma, I inquired if there was any letter for me. I knew my son would be operated by you when we accompanied him from the airport to the hospital. I had given my consent when told about your name. My husband Googled to look up your name and was reassured that our son would be in good hands. Of course, you did not know until you saw me in your office after the angioplasty. I saw in your eyes for a fleeting second the pain on seeing me, which was quickly replaced by your professional look as you talked to us. We gave the first life to Shreyan. You gave him the second. We owe it to you. I know Shreyan and his dad are in touch with you on their mails and social media. My dad, who was struck with COVID, for whom we were traveling to Kolkata, did not make it. This letter is not meant to be a thank you. Otherwise, I would not have started with your first name. Today, after 32 years, I got the answer to all my whys which had enveloped my entire existence. September 2021. Today, I have in my possession all the letters written by you during that summer of '89. I got them in the locker of my father, where they lay neatly stacked with my letters in envelopes written to you. I used to give them to him to send them via speed post. Why the souls of two young persons in love were lying side by side inside a steel locker for 32 years while their physical beings were being kept apart will never be known. All I can say is that my soul is free today. Ankit, I feel we are not similar. We are the same. That's why you never asked Shukonna about your whys regarding me. You are patient with me with your grace and poise from the time we first met till date. A mere mortal who chose to keep us away finally had to bow to destiny. Continuing with your verses on our first meeting in the summer of '89, I finally begin my life by saying these lines in the words of Tagore.
তোমারে যা দিয়েছিনু তার পেয়েছ নিঃশেষ অধিকার, হেথা মোর তিলে তিলে দান, করুণ মুহূর্তগুলি গণ্ডূষ ভরিয়া করে পান, হৃদয় অঞ্জলি হতে মম ওগো নিরুপম, হে ঐশ্বর্যবান, তোমার যা দিয়েছিনু সে তোমারই দান, গ্রহণ করেছ যত ঋণী তত করেছ আমায়। I gave you whatever you had its right as exclusive beholder. Here bits of my arms, pitiable moments imbibe, filling in their palms out of my heart's beneficent. My dear, you are transcendent. O the man of riches, with you what I had parted was only that you yourself had gifted. More as you accepted, more you indebted me by Labunno.
It's 6 in the morning. A tornado just blew across my life and existence in the last few hours. The sun is peeping out in the horizon across the vast expanse of the sea, the beginning of another new day. I open the plastic packet. I lay my hands on a bunch of envelopes dated 1st May 1989. My dear Umtit,
কিছু